Tattooing is the process of injecting ink, either permanent or temporary, into the dermis layer of the skin, forming an artful design. This practice of body modification is created through various processes, including both traditional hand tapping and modern tattoo machines. Its roots trace back to ancient Neolithic times, permeating various cultures across the globe. Tattoos hold various meanings for its wearers. It can be decorative, symbolic, or pictorial. They often denote rites of passage, indications of rank, symbols of spiritual beliefs, declarations of courage, markers of fertility, tokens of admiration, spiritual amulets, protective symbols, or even punitive marks for convicts and outcasts. Performance artists, such as the tattooed ladies, also incorporate extensive body artwork into their acts. However, societal acceptance of tattoos has transformed considerably throughout history. While the earliest known tattooed person, Otzi, existed around 3330 BC, modern perceptions have come a long way since then. In the 20th century, tattooing was associated with select, rugged lifestyles like sailors and prisoners. Today, tattoos are sought after for artistic expression, cosmetic enhancement, sentimentality, religious beliefs, group affiliations, or simple personal identification. The term tattoo is derived from the Samoan word tato, which refers to a bone tool used for tattooing in traditional times. Historically, in the West, tattoos were referred to as painting, scarring, or staining before the Polynesian influence renamed the practice. Note that the term tattoo in this context is not related to the term in the military, which is drawn from the Dutch tapto. Commonly practiced in many tattoo shops are mass-produced, copyrighted designs known as flashed. These are displayed to offer clients a ready source of inspiration or direct choices. In Japan, tattooing or irezumi, meaning insertion of ink, can describe tattoos created using either the traditional hand method taboris or a Western-style machine. The general term for traditional Japanese tattoo designs is horomono, whilst tattoo could refer to non-Japanese styles of tattooing. The American Academy of Dermatology categorizes tattoos into 5 types. Traumatic tattoos, from injuries such as road accidents or pencil stabs. Amateur tattoos. Professional tattoos from traditional methods or tattoo mass. Cosmetic tattoos, also known as permanent makeup, and medical tattoos. Traumatic tattoos, caused when substances like asphalt or gunpowder are fed into a wound from some trauma, can be challenging to remove due to their deep skin penetration. This includes tattoos resulting from coal dust in miners' wounds or amalgam particles from dental procedures. Another form of traumatic tattoos is those inked deliberately or accidentally by a pencil or pen, leaving graphite or ink under the skin. One chilling historical example is the forcible tattooing of identification numbers on concentration camp inmates during the Holocaust by the Nazis, which started in the fall of 1941 at Auschwitz. These tattoos served to identify the inmates with added symbols, such as triangles for Jews and the letter Z for Romani. Facial tattoos as punishment or marks for prisoners or slaves have also been used in ancient civilizations such as the Zhou dynasty in China and the Roman Empire. In the Roman Empire, exported slaves were tattooed with tax paid, while runaway slaves were marked fugitive on their forehead. Due to religious restrictions, Emperor Constantine I prohibited face tattooing in AD 330, while the Second Council of Nicaea in AD 787 banned all body markings, citing them as pagan practices. Lastly, tattoos have also been useful in forensic pathology, helping identify bodies that are burned, decayed, or mutilated. This is as the deep, encapsulated pigment of tattoos is typically resilient, even when the skin is burned. The practice of permanent makeup uses tattoos to accomplish enduring lines and color on facial features like eyebrows, lips, eyes, and also to define moles, typically using natural hues to mimic the appearance of cosmetic makeup. Increasingly, women across the United States and England are choosing to overlay mastectomy surgical scars with creative tattoos, celebrating these marks as a symbol of their journey post-cancer, rather than opting for reconstruction. Moreover, medical tattoos have applications in delineating locations for repeated radiotherapy. They also find use in recreating areolas in certain types of breast reconstruction and in communicating crucial medical information of the bearers, such as their blood group and existing medical conditions. For instance, Alzheimer's patients may be inscribed with their names for effortless Identification in case they lose their way in cases of vitiligo, a pigmentation disorder. Tattoos matching the patient's skin tone are used to cover the affected areas. Members of the Waffen-SS, the armed wing of the Nazi Party during World War II, displayed tattoos indicating their blood types. Post-war, these tattoos serve as unambiguous indicators of their SS membership, potentially leading to imprisonment and legal action. Consequently, numerous ex-Waffen-SS members resorted to self-inflicted gunshot wounds to obliterate these identifying tattoos, leaving behind scars that looked akin to those sustained from smallpox inoculation. Ancient medicine also incorporated tattoos as part of patient treatment. A 1898 article by Dr. Daniel Fouquet explores medical tattooing in ancient Egypt, as evidenced by tattooed markings found on female mummies at Deir el-Bahari. He postulates that these markings, some white, some blue, were not merely decorative but therapeutic, possibly employed to treat chronic pelvic peritonitis. Famously, Otzi the Iceman bore a total of 61 tattoos, speculated to be a primitive form of acupuncture to alleviate pain. Radiological examinations of Otzi's skeletal remains suggest that his tattoos corresponded to areas of degeneration, suggesting the therapeutic use of tattooing is a practice older than its known Chinese inception of 100 BC. This makes Otzi's case an early example of tattoos used for medical purposes. Tattooing customs, particularly those involving the face, are prominent among all Austronesian subgroups, which include the natives of Taiwan, Islander Southeast Asians, Micronesians, Polynesians, and the people of Madagascar. The traditional method involves the use of a miniature mallet and a piercing tool made from citrus thorns, fish bones, regular bones, and oyster shells. Older archaeological findings suggest the existence of these practices even before the Austronesian migration into Papua New Guinea and Melanesia, notably among Papuans and Melanesians who have used unique obsidian skin piercers. In addition, other groups have also partaken in tattooing traditions, ranging from Japan's Ainu people, Austro-Asians of Indochina, North Africa's Berber women, and Nigeria's Yoruba, Fulani, and Hausa communities, to Native Americans of pre-Columbian Americas, and the Picts from Iron Age Britain. In 1566, a documented event saw the abduction of an Inuit woman and her child by French sailors. They were taken to Antwerp in the Dutch Republic, where they were put on display for local entertainment. Various other instances indicate similar exploitations of indigenous people for their tattoos, like the case of Jolai or Giolo, a tattooed Filipino man who was exhibited in a human zoo in 1691 London. However, modern tattooing owes its popularity to Captain James Cook's 3 late 18th century voyages to the South Pacific. His journeys brought greater awareness and curiosity about tattooing in Western languages, especially after his first voyage in 1768. Sir Joseph Banks, the science officer and expedition botanist, was particularly captivated by tattoos. It is believed he was tattooed in Tahiti. He returned to England intrigued and wrote about the practice extensively. On returning, Cook brought a tattooed man named Omai from Raiatea back with him and introduced him to King George and the English court. The cultural history of tattoos holds distinct narratives and identities embedded within skin ink, weaving through different societies and times. In Bosnia and Herzegovina during the Ottoman rule, Catholic women tattooed crosses on their bodies as a preventive measure against kidnapping and forced conversion to Islam. These tattoos, dating back to pre-Slavic, pre-Christian eras, delineate the imprints left by the prehistoric Illyrian tribes. The canvas of skin also narrates tales of indigenous peoples, traders, sailors, and explorers across North America. Tattoos, which served as badges of identity among sailors, transformed into a symbol of affluence following the American Civil War. However, the invention of the electric tattoo machine transformed tattoos from a status symbol to a mark associated with rebellion and crime. Due to its affordability, tattoos continued to flourish in the military culture, a practice which thrives even in the present times. There was a remarkable surge in tattoo artists in the U.S., starting 1975, resonating with how tattoos had evolved to become personal expressions of identity. Emphasizing this cultural shift, multiple surveys showed an increasing acceptance and prevalence of tattoos, especially among the younger generation. However, slight dips were recorded, as per a 2008 survey compared to 2003. Nonetheless, the prevalence of tattoos across different age groups and genders highlighted the ubiquitous nature of this form of self-expression. Indigenous Australians have a long history of using scarring as a form of storytelling and marking identity, a tradition especially alive in Arnhem Land. Every scar signifies a multitude of experiences: pain, endurance, status, beauty, or emotions like courage, sorrow, or grief. The artistry informing each scar involves the careful choice of where to inflict a wound, after which it heals into an ornate mark in Bob Rule's words from Rembert. Arnhem Land, they put it on the wound and then it comes up as an adornment scar. The European settlers also had their form of body marking when they came to Australia during the 17th and 18th centuries: branding. Essentially, this was a method used by the European and British authorities to mark criminals, military deserters, and those court-martialed in Australia. Later in the 19th century, Australians turned to tattoos, more as personal choices than official ones the British authorities started, capturing descriptions of these tattoos, along with scars, as a management tool for the convicts earmarked for transportation. This was a time when tattooing wasn't a commercial venture. Convicts often killed time on board ships tattooing themselves with gunpowder. This anecdote came from James Ross in his 1833 Hobart Almanac. From his studies of convict records spanning 1823 to 1853, he found that approximately 37 of men and 15 of women who they transported to modern-day Tasmania arrived with tattoos in this period. Australia thus became the most heavily tattooed English-speaking country. Tattoo studios were present but rare in early 20th century Australia. The most well-known was Fred Harris's Sydney studio, which was apparently the city's exclusive tattoo studio for nearly 3 decades from 1916 to 1943. Tattoo designs reflected the time's culture, with a rise in female clientele in 1923. Another striking trend was women getting their legs tattooed to reveal the designs through stocking. Soon, Harris became one of Sydney's most famous tattoo artists, creating almost 2,000 tattoos annually in his shop. Though sailors constituted his main customer base, Australian flags and kangaroo designs were favorite tattoo choices for the American fleet sailors visiting Sydney in 1938. Modern Australia loves the Southern Cross motif, among many others. With over 2,000 professional tattoo artists and more than 100 registered parlors and clinics, the industry is booming. There might be twice as many unregistered studios too. Over the past decade, the demand for tattoos in Australia has skyrocketed by more than 440, making it a highly sought-after profession. The country also hosts some large-scale tattoo conventions that attract some of the best artists from around Oceania and are among the biggest in the Southern Hemisphere. In New Zealand, the Maori people have a rich history of tattooing. It was not merely a form of body art, but rather sacred markings indicating lineage, social position, and standing within the tribe, known as a moko. These tattoos held significant cultural value, believed to carry one's spiritual being or tapu into the afterlife. The Maori even practiced the preservation of skin-covered skulls known as twa moko or moko mokai, particularly during early European contact when these heads were traded. Often for firearms, these relics are now being returned to New Zealand, courtesy of the National Museum Te Paipo. The tattooing process involved inserting pigment into the dermal tissue beneath the epidermis. Upon injection, the pigment disperses throughout a damaged layer of skin, activating the immune system's phagocytes to engulf the pigment particles. As the skin heals, the surface pigment is shed while deeper within the skin. Granulation tissue forms, then converts to connective tissue due to collagen growth. This process repairs the skin with pigment trapped in the skin layers, resulting in a tattoo. Traditional tribal cultures would cut designs into the skin before rubbing the wound with ink or ashes, a method still practiced by some cultures worldwide. Others hand-tapped the ink into the skin using sharpened sticks or animal bones crafted into needles. The more modern method employs an electric tattoo machine that rapidly drives needles packed with ink into the skin, repeatedly and quickly. Modern tattoo artists often utilize thermal stencil paper or hectograph ink stencil paper to replicate a printed design onto the skin before tattooing. This illustrates the historical evolution of the Maori tattoo tradition over time, combining cultural significance with advancing technology. In many Austronesian societies, tattoos held significant cultural meaning and served various functions. For men, especially in headhunting communities like the Ifugao and Dayak, tattoos became a permanent record of battle achievements and reflected their status as warriors. The intricacy and number of their tattoos, signified their bravery and were considered to hold magical abilities against evil and disease. Similarly, in pre-colonial Visayan society, the nobility and warrior class donned tattoos, asserting their participation in maritime raids. Known as Mangayal, on the other hand, for Austronesian women like the Tayal and Maori, tattoos depicted status, beauty, and skill. However, the perception of tattoos was different in the ancient Yu culture of the Yangtze River Delta, Han culture in China, and among the Romans. In these societies, tattoos were viewed negatively, often used as a means to mark criminals. This stigma of associating tattoos with crime also influenced Japan and continued to hold relevance even today, particularly in Chinese society. In the 19th century, tattoos were used to identify released U.S. convicts, Australian convicts, and British Army deserters, and even marked prisoners in Nazi concentration camps. Modern-day prisoners often adopt this practice, using tattoos to represent time spent in prison. In fact, the Meiji government in Japan had banned tattoos in the 19th century due to the strong connection with the Yakuza, the Japanese organized crime, a prohibition that lasted until 1948 today. Regulations in Osaka require tattoos to be covered and even encourage the removal of existing tattoos. Tattoos also served cultural and religious purposes among Native Americans and the Catholic Croats of Bosnia, respectively. While Native Americans used tattoos to signify tribal affiliation, Catholic Croats used religious tattooing as a protection against conversion to Islam during the Ottoman rule in the Balkans. Tattoos hold a myriad of interpretations worldwide. They can memorialize fallen friends in the form of teardrops, acknowledge military accomplishments in the U.S., or mark a person's affiliation with the notorious Yakuza criminal group in Japan. Conversely, some groups like Fukushima Saichi's Tattoo Association in Japan honor deceased individuals with extensive tattoos by preserving their skins even in the British Armed Forces. Tattoos are a common sight. In the U.S., many diverse fields have started to accept tattoos as part of their company culture. This is highlighted by the rise of tattoo exhibitions in mainstream art galleries, such as Beyond Skin at the Museum of Croydon. History also testifies to the presence of women with concealed tattoos throughout the 20th century in the UK, countering a trend of low self-esteem and negative body image that has been linked to body modification among teenagers. Shockingly, in the 21st century, the tide of the tattoo industry is changing due to increasing female involvement and a growing acceptance of tattooed women, as seen in Beverly Ewan Thompson's Covered in Ink. The changing perception is evidenced by the younger generation's indifference to heavily tattooed women, and in some cases, family acceptance further strengthens family bonds. This growing tolerance for tattoos even transcends to the field of marketing and advertising. Skinvertising, tattooing company logos like HBU, Red Bull, and Sailor Jerry's rum on one's body has emerged as an unconventional advertising trend. Advanced armament corporations offer their customers promotions that involve getting a tattoo of one of their copyrighted logos, indicating a collaboration between commercial interests and personal body art. Meanwhile, a Massachusetts barbecue restaurant named EETS Smokehouse took this trend to another level by offering lifetime meals in exchange for visible tattoos of their establishment's logo. Although not without controversies, this surprising trend saw a handful of eager customers take up the offer. Therefore, from symbolizing personal loss to embodying family bonds and serving commercial interests, tattoos continue to define societal norms and bear personal narratives in various contexts, thereby transforming the popular perception of body art. Tattooing, being an art that pierces the skin's protective layer, naturally poses health risks including infections and allergic reactions. However, contemporary tattoo artists have managed to minimize these risks by adhering to universal safety measures, utilizing single-use items, and sterilizing their tools after each use in various regions. Tattoo artists are even required to undergo training on handling bloodborne pathogens, offered by institutions like the Red Cross and OSHA. Thankfully, there have been 0 reported instances of tattoo-based IV transmission in the United States since 2009. Notably, the risk of infections increases significantly in amateur or prison-based tattooing. Conceivably, unsterilized tattoo apparatuses or contaminated ink can transmit a variety of infections, ranging from skin and fungal infections to serious diseases like hepatitis, herpes simplex virus, HIV, staph, tetanus, and tuberculosis. Despite tattoo inks being generally non-reactive, some documented cases of allergic reactions exist, primarily to particular colors. This is often traced back to the inclusion of nickel in the ink pigment, which can trigger conventional metal allergies occasionally. The tattooing procedure might puncture a blood vessel, resulting in a bruise or hematoma. Furthermore, it's worth noting that various tattoo inks may contain hazardous substances, prompting the European Chemicals Agency to put forth a proposal restricting the usage or concentration of roughly 4,000 substances in tattoo inks. According to studies, current tattoo inks sometimes contain nanomaterials, raising significant nanotoxicological concerns. Certain colors, especially red or similar shades, seem to instigate more complications and damage than others. In fact, severe skin and flesh damage caused by red ink have necessitated amputations in extreme cases if any part of a tattoo, especially red, starts causing issues like itching or lumpiness. Danish experts strongly recommend removing the problematic parts. For one recent study, scientists from the European Synchrotron Radiation Facility discovered that tattoo ink chemicals could potentially journey through the bloodstream and accumulate in the lymph nodes, thereby hampering their infection-fighting abilities nonetheless. It's crucial to note that most tattooed individuals, including those studied, don't suffer from chronic inflammation. Tattoo artists frequently advise on skin sun protection to prevent tattoos from fading and to maintain skin health for potential future tattooing. While tattoos are generally permanent, it is occasionally feasible to completely or partially remove them via laser treatments. Depending on the ink used, carbon-based or iron oxide-based pigments, along with some colored inks, can be more effectively removed than others. Compared to the application process, tattoo removal is generally more expensive and painful. Although other removal techniques exist, like dermabrasion, celabrasion, reduction, cryosurgery, and excision, sometimes complemented with skin grafts for larger tattoos. Laser removal has predominantly replaced these older methods. Decal, press-on, temporary tattoos, a popular way to adorn the body, can last anywhere from a day to over a week. Their metallic versions, known as foil temporary tattoos, are created using a foil stamping process and protected by a clear protective layer. Airbrush tattoos, despite their increasing popularity and higher costs, typically don't match the appearance of permanent tattoos and don't last as long as their decal counterparts inked onto the skin using a stencil and alcohol-based cosmetic inks. These airbrush designs can be easily removed with rubbing alcohol or baby oil. Another option is henna-based tattoos. These are free from additives and are created using a plant-derived substance which tints the skin a range of hues from reddish, orange to brown. However, the time-consuming application process and the semi-permanent nature of henna, which lacks the vibrant colors of decal tattoos, make it an unsuitable choice for children, although allergic reactions to pure henna are rare. Serious issues can occur when additives are used, with black henna tattoos being particularly harmful. In the United States, decal temporary tattoos must have their color additives approved by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA, for skin contact. Although some users may experience minor skin irritation with these tattoos, it is not severe enough to warrant public warnings, however. Non-approved pigments, often used by non-use manufacturers, can trigger allergic reactions. Craft paints, commonly used for art projects or clothing decoration, should not be used for tattooing as they can provoke allergic reactions or toxicity. Temporary tattoos labeled as black henna or pre-mixed henna should also be avoided as they may contain potentially harmful ingredients such as silver nitrate, carmine, pyrogallo, dispersed orange dye, and chromium. In particular, black henna derives its color from paraphenylenediamine, Pep-D, a textile dye approved by the FDA for hair coloring only in Canada. PD is banned for skin use, including in hair dye. Many of these ingredients have been linked to allergic reactions, chronic inflammation, and delayed allergic reactions to associated clothing and hairdressing dyes. With reactions potentially emerging long after application, neither black henna nor pre-mixed henna have they approval for cosmetic use. The theme of the story revolves around religious perspectives concerning tattoos in different faiths: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Officially, Judaism forbids tattoos, basing the prohibition on Leviticus 19 commandments. This specific rule is typically understood to apply solely to Jewish believers, not to non-Jewish individuals. However, the contemporary era has witnessed an uptick in Jewish youth opting for tattoos, either as a trendy fashion statement or a personal faith representation. When we turn to Christianity, the New Testament does not put forth any particular teaching banning tattoos. Majority of the Christian sects think that the ceremonial laws in Leviticus, also known as the Old Covenant, were superseded with the arrival of the New Covenant. This means the restriction on various cultural practices such as tattooing, which was set to differentiate Israelites from their neighbors for a restricted period, is not a universally applicable rule for all times and for all non-Jewish people. Nonetheless, some evangelical and fundamentalist Protestant sects hold the commandment relevant for contemporary Christians and deem tattooing a sinful act. Catholic teaching provides a different perspective, where the focus is not on the act of tattooing itself, but on the content of the tattoo. It should not depict immoral themes that contradict with Christian values. The debate continues in Islam. Many Sunni Muslims view tattoos as haram, forbidden, citing scholars' rulings and passages from the Sunni Hadith. However, Shia Islam does not forbid tattooing, allowing numerous Shia Muslims from Lebanon, Iraq, Yemen, and Iran to sport tattoos, particularly those with religious motifs. These nuances are of interest to platforms like Inked, a digital media company with a focus on tattoo culture that presents itself as the unconventional voice for the insiders.